What's up, guys? mcstu here, and today I want to talk a little bit about the state of the game and some of what I'm seeing, at least over the last week or so. I've been pretty critical, I think, over the past month, with the really stemming from the 14th anniversary bundle, and not so much about the offering. I think the offering ended up being just fine, but really, and just the sheer amount of bugs that we have gotten. I know that is, I don't want to say an understatement, but that's something that if you've played this game for any amount of time, you're pretty aware of and deal with on a regular basis. And I know I had logged in a couple weeks ago, and there was something else broken that just kind of broke the camel's back for me, and I kind of made a video just kind of ranting about it, and it was well deserved. I mean, it was with the SROs and also the Watcher Bridge officers and some others that weren't registering on ships, and basically I think I had labeled it was ridiculous, and it was. But with that being said, I think it's only fair for me to point out the positive stuff that I'm seeing, especially given the transition period that they're going through. I know they're a business, and I run a business, and if I'm having a bad day, my customers don't care, right? They want their product delivered that they've paid for, and that is still true. But again, I think what I'm kind of seeing, looking at tonight's patch notes and some of the things that got fixed last week, is what's the right way to say it? I don't want to say a faster pace, but at least for the way that I play the game and the things that were coming out that I purchased that weren't working, those things being fixed. Now, I know there's going to be a ton of comments. They haven't fixed this yet, they haven't fixed that yet, and that's 100% true, and I understand that frustration. But I can only speak to the way I play the game and the things that are bothering me. And just to be clear, I mean, everything's not fixed that I would like to see fixed by any means, but what I really wanted to kind of point out here is that I'm seeing the rate of things being fixed feels like it is better, at least over the past 2 to 3 weeks. Now, if you had asked me that yesterday before the patch notes, or let's say before last week, there was actually some things missing from the patch notes that did get fixed. But when you put on top of that the patch notes that have come out tonight, and we'll take a look at that here in just a moment, it really does give me a little bit of hope that these guys are really trying to do the best that they can. And I think that says a lot, especially during this period of time where I think it's pretty clear that most of them that currently work at Cryptic Studios probably will not be working there a year from now, and that's not by choice, and that really does suck. So first off, again, I just want to make sure that I'm being fair, and that when I make videos where I'm pissed off and and pooping on them, that I also do the same thing when things are being fixed that I personally want to see fixed and are being fixed, and I want to make sure that I'm pointing that stuff out as well. And again, I think across the board, there's been a lot of uncertainty with the game, obviously, and the transition to Deca. I think that Phil Frazier being on the 10 forward last week was definitely a breath of fresh air. He was, it started off with a little bit of corporate-y kind of speak, but I think at the end, when he went through and answered questions that he had been taking down and noting throughout the stream, I felt like he was very engaged and cares about what's going on there and wanted to answer our questions. And I think that if 10 forward was 3 hours long, I think he probably would have stuck around and answered all the questions that he possibly could. And in fact, towards the end, Kale kind of cut him off, and it's like, okay, that's it, it's an hour. And you could tell he wanted to kind of go on. So that was a very positive thing to get some insight, shine a little bit of sunshine on what's going on there. There's been a lot of concern about whether where the game's at and what's going on. I don't think any of us really thought the game was about to shut down or anything like that, but the bottom line is we just didn't have any idea what was going on, and we were left to speculate. And you all know how that can just kind of spiral out of control, especially on top of the bugs that we were seeing that came out of the lockbox during the 14th anniversary, and the ships and the traits and different things that were released and just didn't work right. I mean, we're actually game breaking completely if you had some of these things, regardless of how you play the game. So let's just take a quick look just over the past, 3-4 weeks or so of just patch notes. We'll start at the oldest one here, which is basically about 4 weeks back, and I've just kind of highlighted a couple that were, in my mind, important, and from a bias standpoint, they were important to me. Now, some of these things may not be real important to you if you didn't have these ships or whatever, but there are a couple that were really affecting everybody. And the first one here is the Organic Nebula. That trait, and we had demonstrated this. Brett actually did a video specifically demonstrating how this trait was causing the mass amounts of rubber banding. Now, there was two parts of that if you guys were playing during the 14th anniversary. One part is during events when episodes and stuff come out, the player population explodes, to play those couple things and play with some of the new shinies. There's a lot of players that just kind of come back and forth when new things are released, and that by itself just creates a little bit of performance issues. Generally, it's not terrible, depending on what you're doing in the game. If you're just playing through the story, missions and things like that. If you're somebody that's, playing with friends and trying to do specific things that need to be perfectly timed out, it can kind of interfere with that a little bit. This year, during the 14th anniversary, it was really, really bad because of Organic Nebula. That was a bridge officer ability that you could spam and was creating mass amounts of server lag on top of the servers just already being busy from the event. I thought that this took a little long to fix, but what do I know? I mean, how long should it take? It shouldn't have happened, I guess, to start with, but it made it bad, really, really bad to play the game. Even just casually, you were kind of rubber banding all over the place. So this was fixed last month, or the very beginning of this month. This post went out on March 6th, and that was corrected, along with some other bridge officer abilities that had came out in that same lockbox. Quite a bit of what came out in that lockbox just was not working, or was creating, problems for the game in general. So that was kind of one of the first fix. Again, at this point, I was still pretty, disheartened by, the state of the game. And I mean, physically where it was at, it just was hard to play. And so getting that fixed, definitely made some difference. But at this point, again, there was quite a bit of stuff that I had purchased that wasn't fixed. And, we were still seeing quite a bit of problems from it. One of the big things for me was so it's kind of weird here. So this week, and this was on the 13th, so was that 3 weeks ago, they made some adjustments to bridge officers and their traits not correctly applying to the captain. And when this happened, they actually ended up breaking basically bridge officers. So SROs were not giving you, it basically did the opposite of what, was supposed to be corrected. And I think there was some kind of minor problem here, and they, whatever that problem was, ended up breaking these other things. And that weekend I had actually logged into play. I was pretty excited, had some free time. It was, had been a busy week, so I was pretty excited, and I logged in, and all of my stats were, in the toilet. And I was just like, you know what, I'm just going to do the daily and I'm out. Because for me, I've already played through all the content and all those things, so I like to, build on my ship and try out new things and theory craft and test it. And when you have things that are as impactful, it's, particular bridge officer traits not working properly, it's kind of like, what's the point? And so that was a real kind of make or break for me. I was pretty bummed out about that. So that was kind of a negative, and we'll talk more about that in a moment. The next thing here is an issue with the Awani trait, the trait. This was, let me see, Fleet Power Network Array. So this was the console, and they addressed an issue as causing the console to sometimes override existing weapons firing modes. So if you don't know, this console is, at some point here, will be widely considered to be one of the best consoles in the entire game in terms of damage output. What it does is it gives you just a massive amount of fire cycle haste, and it's huge. I mean, it's bigger than any other console. It's basically a domino without a phaser buff, but it does like twice plus the amount of fire cycle haste, which is huge. It more than makes up for not giving you any kind of a weapons damage buff directly, that is. The issue with it is it also has a proc every 3 seconds that it can give you a firing mode. be it salvo or what is it? Cannon rapid fire, or I believe it's fire at will. And so what was happening is when this came out, it was overriding a current firing mode. So for instance, if I'm using cannon scatter volley and I'm running this console, I've activated it every 3 seconds and it procs, say, fire at will or cannon rapid fire, it would basically turn off my scatter volley and only do rapid fire. And that's not what it was supposed to do. It was doing that for basically every firing mode except for fire at will, which luckily on most of my builds, I was actually running fire at will, so it wasn't as big of a deal. But for anybody else doing, cannon scatter volley or anything else, it was creating, big problems. So they fixed that the week before last, and that was a nice little fix. But again, we were still dealing with the trait that came on the ship was not working properly, and many other issues. So if we jump forward to last week, they resolved an issue with the Universal Console, the Fleet Power Network Array, overriding firing modes. So they addressed that again. Because it didn't fully fix it the week before because it was still interfering a little bit, and it seems like that has been pretty much flushed out at this point where we're not having that problem. Something else to note, and this would have been something to really make sure was in the patch notes and celebrate it, was that during last week's patch they did fix the bridge officer issue that we were having where your SROs and your watchers were not stacking. And again, that was one of the things, like I said, for me, it just kind of broke the camel's back. I didn't have anything to do in the game because I couldn't theory craft or use my ships because I rely on those kind of bridge officers. We all, spend a lot of resources in grinding those out, or a lot of us do. So that was something that was fixed, but not mentioned in here at all. So kind of a miss there in terms of not letting us know, but at least it was fixed and they did take care of that. And obviously I'm kind of just cherry picking things out of here. There are quite a few other fixes for some of the other ships that came in the 14th anniversary that we've kind of passed over. So if those are ships that you have gotten, there has been work done to those ones that did have problems with their consoles or traits. Now, the patch notes that were posted for tomorrow, so they came out tonight, the 25th, they have resolved some other issues. So the Pavo 3-piece set, and I know most of us don't have this yet. I've only missed one day, and that was, I think, 2 days ago, and I still have a few days to go on the current event. So I do not... do I have this? No, I'm sorry. I'm misquoting here. So this was the last event that this came out. So this whole set's come out. I haven't even used it because if you slotted everything, it basically instantly reduced the cooldowns on anything on your ship that has cooldowns, captain's abilities, everything that's on it. So that's a nice little exploit. I don't want to call it a cheat because it's just the way the game's working, but that's not the way it was supposed to work. And I didn't want to mess with that. And, basically, I mean, you don't have to manage your cooldowns. You don't have to do anything else. It just was completely broken and causing issues there. That has been addressed as well. Again, this is, a couple weeks after, that event has ended. Should it have been released like that? No, but is that really surprising, if you're someone that's played this game a lot, right? And don't misunderstand, I'm not trying to give a pass here. What I'm really trying to demonstrate is kind of the difference that I'm seeing in pace of correction on this, because we've had things that are broken and still broken, to be fair, that have been in the game for years, right? I mean, the loadout system barely works half the time for a lot of people if they're moving around ships a lot and stuff. So again, this isn't a, this isn't a suck up to Cryptic and Deca kind of thing, because there still are problems. The other thing that they have listed, and these things on this list here are something we're gonna have to test tomorrow after the patch, because this is just what they're saying. It's been done, and hopefully nothing else is broken with it. But they're saying that they resolved an issue with the flagship staffing trait, which is the trait that came off the Iwani. And again, I'm kind of focusing on this because this is one of the only ships that I got from the 14th anniversary. And I was pretty pissed off because basically everything on that ship that I bought wasn't working right. The hangar pets weren't giving the correct, attack pattern beta if you got the elite ones from the fleet. The console was not working properly. It had a lot of problems to start with. It was doing something similar where, like the Pavo said, it was basically knocking all your cooldowns down like crazy. So you could just spam DPRM if you wanted to. But they have addressed the Starship trait that was also doing something similar, at least for your bridge officer abilities. So they resolved an issue with the trait that was causing this trait to affect all powers instead of just non-specialization weapons firing mode. So this trait gives some cooldown to your non-specialization firing mode. The trait was giving cooldown to basically everything. So if this all works properly and nothing else is broken tomorrow because of these fixes, then they're well on their way to making sure that the 14th anniversary bundle is now as advertised. Let me put it that way. And again, like I said, I did skip over quite a bit of patch notes. They have addressed many of the other issues with the other ships that were in the bundle. Again, I just wanted to focus on this because this is really what was affecting me, and this is what I can kind of speak to in the difference there. So we can have a conversation about should this stuff have ever been released, when it was not in a state as advertised. And I don't even think that's a conversation, right? I mean, the answer is no. And that's something that I hope, really changes once the full, transition to Deca happens. And again, if I'm being honest, this has been kind of the norm for years and years and years, at least, that I've played the game. So I hope to see that changing going forward. That's my hope. I don't know if it will. I don't want to sit here and say it's gonna. I have no idea, but that's my hope. What I can say though is that in my mind, they have aggressively gone after these current fresh bugs that have been happening over the past 2 months, basically, starting at the 4th anniversary bundle. If that stuff had never happened, things would have been, I think, much, much better going into this transition because, the last 2 event ships were amazing. They were 10 out of 10 for free event ships. We got a free tier 6 coupon. They announced that the event campaign for this year is going to give us all of the rewards instead of having to pick 1 out of the 3. It was just a super high note coming off of the Christmas event and getting close to the 14th anniversary event. And once the 14th anniversary event started, we had all this server lag with the lockbox, and then we had just all the problems with the ships that were included are the things that came on those ships. And it really just kind of took the wind out of the sails. I know for the community in general and for myself, because I was really pumped about the direction it was going, especially, heading in or midway in on this particular transition with the company being absorbed by, Deca. So I think that we're seeing a pace of, fixes to this stuff that is better than what we had seen in years past. Is it perfect? It is definitely not perfect, but, we've all played this game for years and dealt with these bugs, right? So I'm going to celebrate, if I see or I feel like it's getting a little bit better, at least in the way that they're addressing these. And I think too, when we look at this with, the context of, people leaving and them having to train Deca and knowing that, most likely their jobs are very up in the air, to be able to see, a more aggressive pace of these things being fixed is a positive thing, and it gives me a lot of hope for this transition. Again, hope's, a dangerous thing. I'm not trying to sell copium here or hopium or any of that kind of stuff because, these patches come out tomorrow and a whole bunch of stuff now is broken, and, I'm eating crow, right? So, but again, I just wanted to be fair because I'd been pretty, I don't want to say depressed because, I got real life kids and family that I love and stuff, and, I don't get depression from a video game, but I was kind of bummed out, about just kind of what I was seeing, the direction things were going over the past, few months. And, when I really took a step back and looked at the patch notes that came out tonight, and I started looking back through, so the fixes that were starting to happen and that we were seeing happen leading up to tonight from the past couple weeks, I tried to be fair and as balanced as possible and really kind of look at that, in reference to how we've seen bug fixes and the rate of those, going back over the last couple of years. And I think that, like I said, I think it's at a better rate, and it looks like there's a little bit more of an aggressive, pace in trying to fix this stuff. So I'll wrap it up there, guys. I just want to do a little talking head, just kind of how I was feeling about what I'm seeing in the game, where the game's at. Again, it's an uncertain future. There's a lot of unknowns, with Cryptic Studios being absorbed by Deca, and, who knows what we'll see tomorrow or the next, couple days. But I think it's important, for us that make these videos and in some cases are very critical, to, be honest and be fair when, you know, we're seeing things that, or when I'm seeing things that make me feel good about, you know, what's happening. Those might not always get the clicks, but you know, that's okay. I mean, I'm going to be honest before, you know, we get clicks. I'm never going to come on here and tell you stuff that I don't believe just because, you know, I want to get clicks on my videos and stuff like that. It's not the end of the world if I don't. I got a, you know, full-time job and family and stuff. Like I said, this is just something fun that I like to do, make a tiny little bit of extra money doing it. And, you know, hopefully I'm able to help people out with it. So let's go ahead and leave it there, guys. Let me know what you think. Again, you know, I know there's going to be lots of comments that, you know, well, this isn't fixed and that isn't fixed. And I'm not arguing. I mean, there is a lot of stuff that still needs to be fixed. I saw a glimmer of hope here in what I was, you know, seeing from the last couple weeks, and I just wanted to kind of share with you guys my thoughts on that. So let me know what you guys think. Check out the Discord server. I'm gonna be running some giveaways going into probably the beginning of next month. Be in-game stuff, EC, things like that. If you need help with the game, questions, looking for people to play with, we've got about 3,000 members in the Discord server. Everybody's welcome. So definitely check that out, guys. All right, until next time, have a good one. I appreciate you. Bye-bye.